Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The envelope was under my coffee mug. I don't know how it got there. I don't even remember placing it down. It was beige, unmarked, and already creased, like someone had second-guessed delivering it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No warmth. Just clinical language from a law firm I didn't recognize. My client, Eliza Stenwick, formally requests divorce proceedings be initiated immediately. Further, she requires zero verbal or written communication, effective upon your reading of this letter. No warning, no fight, no teary breakdown in the kitchen. Just that. And I wish I could say that was the most shocking part, but that came 14 minutes later when I opened our banking app and found zeros. Empty. All of it. Our shared savings. My emergency fund. Gone. Every cent I thought we'd built together, silently extracted while I slept. No messages. No explanations. Not even a voicemail. Eliza had disappeared behind legal curtains and locked the door on the way out, but not before draining every resource she could still access under my nose. I sat there, completely still, the taste of bitter coffee catching in my throat. She'd even taken the Wi-Fi router. You might think I stormed out, or cursed, or broke something. But I didn't. I just opened the fridge. She'd left the almond milk. She always hated almond milk. I had stocked it for her. I poured a glass. I couldn't even drink it. I spent the rest of the morning calling banks, attorneys, anyone who might help. They all asked for details I couldn't give. I didn't even know what city she was in. But what Eliza didn't know, and this is the only reason I didn't completely fall apart, was that she had forgotten one thing. Her photography business, her travel card, and her freelance payments account were still tied to a trust under my name. She had begged me to help her build it last year, when she didn't qualify on her own. And now? It took one phone call, one line of verification, one breath I didn't know I was holding. Would you like to temporarily suspend the account while this is being reviewed, sir? Yes. Yes, I would. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't rant. I just waited. And exactly 72 hours later, to the second, she broke her own silence. Not with an apology, but with something that nearly made me throw up in the street. When Eliza finally broke her silence, it wasn't a call or even a message. It was a voice memo, just over 2 minutes long, sent from a number I didn't recognize, attached to an email titled, "Unacceptable." No greeting, no explanation, just her voice, dry, forced, and cold in a way I'd never heard before. She said, "Curtis, I'm going to make this simple. You freezing the accounts wasn't smart. It was petty. I gave you an exit that didn't require drama. If you think this is going to get you leverage, it won't. You have until noon to fix this, or I escalate." Noon. Like I was a contractor on a job deadline. Like our entire marriage was a transaction with terms and conditions. But that wasn't what made me shake. It was what came next. She added, "This was never about hurting you. You were convenient. And for a while, that was enough. But I can't keep living like that." Convenient. That word did something to me. Like I was the old couch someone kept until the new one arrived. But here's what she didn't know. I hadn't just frozen the trust. I'd begun tracking its activity. That trust was still receiving auto deposits from a client I'd never heard of. Weekly payments labeled SK/consulting. It was a name I didn't recognize, but the memo line said, "Package fulfillment." So I did what any broken, humiliated husband would do. I called the number attached to one of the deposits. A man answered. His voice was overly familiar, cheerful. When I asked who he was, he paused, then said, "Oh, are you Eliza's assistant?" My stomach dropped. I said yes. He went on, oblivious. "Yeah, she mentioned someone was handling logistics while she's in Monaco. Listen, the last drop-off went fine, but she's behind on the shoot schedule. I hope she's not burning out again like she did in Tulum." Monaco? Tulum? What? I hung up without saying anything. Monaco wasn't on any itinerary. Not that she would have shared it with me, but this wasn't a woman escaping a bad marriage. This was someone who had planned an entirely separate life, down to her income stream and international contacts. And if she was halfway across the world living some fantasy, then why? Just 6 hours after that call, was a black car parked across the street from my house. Why did a man get out, look right at my front door, and then call someone while staring at my windows? I didn't answer the door. I watched from the upstairs bathroom window, holding my breath. The silence she demanded was gone. Now they were watching me. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the hallway with the lights off, listening. Every car that passed, every rustle of leaves outside made my pulse spike. The man had stood there for almost 15 minutes, never approaching the door, never knocking. He just made that call, nodded once, then drove off in that black sedan with tinted windows. But something about his stare stuck with me. Not aggressive, not confused, confident. Like he expected me to come out. Like he already knew what I'd do next. The next morning, I checked the front door. Nothing. No letter. No package. No warning. But around 10:42 a.m., I got an alert. Someone had tried to access my front door camera feed remotely. They didn't succeed, but they'd tried more than once. That system wasn't even under Eliza's name. She wasn't supposed to know the login. That's when I started to suspect something deeper. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. This was orchestrated. I thought back to the trust, the SK/consulting deposits, the weird memo lines. I opened every transaction in the last 3 months, and one caught my attention. It was labeled, Arden Logistics, Cold Storage Drop. That meant nothing to me, but the account tied to it traced back to a storage facility outside of Albany. I got in the car. Driving there was the first time in weeks I felt something close to control. I needed to see what this storage unit was. I didn't have access, but I had a name from the account. Arden. The facility was grim, cracked pavement, barely staffed, no security in sight. I asked the clerk if they had a unit under Eliza Stenwick or Arden, and the guy's face changed instantly. Tight. Suspicious. He said, can't give info unless you're on the lease. So I played dumb. I said I was her assistant again and asked if she'd left anything behind for pickup. He hesitated. She said someone might come this week. Then added, big unit. Expensive. Always locked. I stood in the parking lot for a long time, trying to decide if I should call the police, a lawyer, or just set the whole thing on fire inside my head. Before I could make a decision, a familiar black sedan pulled in from the back gate, and the same man stepped out, holding a clipboard and a phone. This time, he walked directly toward me. He didn't ask if I was Curtis. He didn't ask anything. The man in the black sedan just walked straight up to me, calm as if we were meeting for coffee, and said, "You're Peter Ellison, right?" I stood there, blinking, trying to decide if he was bluffing or if I'd just slipped into someone else's life without realizing it. "No," I said. "You've got the wrong person." He smiled faintly, too knowingly. "Sure," he muttered, tapping something on his phone. "That's what we all say first." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten me. But I swear the weight of that one name, Peter Ellison, crashed through my chest harder than anything Eliza had done so far. I've never used that name. Never even heard it until now. But the moment he said it, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. He expected me to recognize it. And that scared me more than the name itself. I turned away without saying anything and got in my car, pretending to check my phone. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. When I looked in the rearview mirror, he was still standing there, arms crossed, staring straight at me like he knew exactly where I'd go next. When I got home, I pulled out the old lockbox Eliza and I used to keep for important documents, birth certificates, the deed to the house, that kind of thing. But there was one envelope I hadn't remembered seeing before. No label. Inside was a printed photo of Eliza. Recent, maybe just a few weeks ago, on a balcony somewhere warm, drink in hand, and a man standing behind her with his arm around her waist. I didn't recognize him, but the back of the photo had 3 words written in small, neat handwriting. "You were warned." I don't know how it got into our house. I don't know how long it had been there. But now I was sure of one thing. Eliza hadn't just left me. She had built a life I wasn't supposed to discover. And someone, somewhere, had just opened a door I wasn't meant to walk through. I started thinking maybe this had nothing to do with divorce at all. Maybe that was just the distraction. Because the woman I thought I married, she didn't just disappear. She vanished with a plan. I scanned the back of the photo over and over. "You were warned." Who writes that by hand anymore? It didn't even feel like a threat. It felt like a breadcrumb. But what really got me was the tiny barcode printed on the bottom right corner of the envelope itself, like something you'd see on a library return slip or a package from an archive. I almost didn't notice it, but when I flipped the envelope in better light, I saw faint words underneath the barcode. Trico Parcel Holdings, internal use only. I typed that into a search engine. Nothing came up at first. Then I found a link on a darkly designed website meant for corporate storage clients. It wasn't public-facing. You had to know it existed. And somehow, when I typed the barcode number into the site's tracking tool, it pinged. Active status. Archived under a location labeled only as Dock 9C, upstate New York. I swear my body went cold. Why was a photo of my wife with some stranger connected to a private archive facility I'd never heard of? What else was stored there? And why was I suddenly part of whatever game this was? I didn't call the police. I should have, maybe. But honestly, by that point, I was too far gone. My fear had morphed into obsession. I wanted answers. I needed them, even if they shattered whatever pieces of myself I had left. I borrowed my coworker Lenny's van, told him I was helping a cousin move out of town. I didn't sleep that night, just waited for the sun to rise so I'd have an excuse to drive. The address tied to Dock 9C was barely on the map. One gas station, a church with a broken bell, and long stretches of cracked highway. I passed more deer than people. When I finally pulled up to the location, I expected a warehouse or maybe another grim storage yard. But it wasn't that. It was a shuttered post office, windows boarded, flag torn. And yet the keypad next to the side entrance blinked green when I stepped near it, like it had motion sensors. There was no signage, no camera, only a black sticker across the keypad that read, "Clearance required. No public entry." I stood there with my hand hovering over the door, heart pounding so hard I thought it would rupture. Because suddenly, I realized this wasn't about Eliza anymore. It was about who else knew I was coming. The door wasn't locked. That was the first thing that rattled me. A keypad that required clearance, but a handle that turned without resistance. As soon as I stepped inside, the air changed, cold, metallic, and stale like it hadn't been disturbed in months. There was no lighting at first, just faint blue emergency bulbs along the floor that led through a narrow corridor like a runway. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was deliberate, manufactured. I walked slowly, every footstep echoing like a hammer in a tomb. Around the third corner, I saw the security station, a small desk surrounded by monitors, half of them dark, the others flickering with grainy footage of what looked like various storage chambers. One feed caught my attention. It was labeled Bay C7. Inside was a dimly lit room with a metal chair in the center and a projector screen on the wall. On the chair sat a familiar box, the same kind we used to keep under our bed back when Eliza and I were still pretending to be in love. And then, one of the monitors lit up. Not grainy, not flickering, high definition. It showed a hallway. The hallway I was in. I stopped breathing. I was on the screen, right there in real time, frozen in place. And behind me, on the monitor, not in my ears, I saw a second figure appear. I spun around. No one. The camera feed went black. That's when I saw the small envelope sitting on the desk, addressed in the same handwriting I'd seen on the back of the photo. Curtis, for your clarity. Inside was a flash drive. No explanation. No password. Just cold plastic and weight. There was an old desktop nearby, and despite every nerve in my body screaming not to plug it in, I did. The screen went dark for a second, then loaded a video player. No menu. No options. It just played. I watched Eliza walk into the frame. Same red coat she wore the night she said she was visiting her sister. She sat beside a man I couldn't identify at first, tall, suited, mid-40s, and began speaking in a tone I'd never heard from her before. Not angry, not emotional, just tactical. She said, "He won't fight back. He's too weak. If we move the accounts and break contact quickly, he'll collapse inward." That's what the profile showed. The man nodded. "We need 72 hours. Minimum. Can you keep him numb that long?" Eliza smiled. "He'll probably still be blaming himself by then." I closed the window. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. Because everything I thought I knew had just imploded. I sat in that freezing little room for almost 20 minutes, just staring at the blank screen. My reflection in the black monitor looked like a stranger. Hollow eyes, clenched jaw, shaking hands. The worst part wasn't what Eliza had said. It was how confident she sounded. Like she'd rehearsed this entire thing, even the manipulation. Like I was a role she had cast, not a husband she once claimed to love. But there was one thing still gnawing at me. That name, Ellison. The man in the black sedan had called me that like it was supposed to mean something. And the way Eliza referenced the profile, it wasn't just a figure of speech. It sounded clinical, official, like there was a system behind everything. So I searched. The old PC was wired to a closed database, dated, clunky, password protected. I guessed 3 times. On the 4th, it opened with the phrase I found taped under the desk, for internal profiles only. There were dozens of folders, each labeled by last name and a string of numbers. I scrolled until my stomach dropped. There it was. Ellison _P _ 1977 _524, encrypted. It took 3 minutes to unlock the video inside. The footage wasn't of me. Not directly. It was surveillance. A feed from inside my house, dated 6 months before the divorce. Eliza was visible in the kitchen, on the phone, pacing back and forth. Her voice was low, agitated. She said, "No, he doesn't know. But if he finds out who he really is, what happened before the transfer, this whole thing falls apart." Then a voice from the other end, unrecognizable, male, and calm, replied, "You're under protection. He won't remember unless someone triggers it. Stay the course." Transfer. Protection. Triggers. What in God's name had I forgotten? There were more files, documents, medical scans, even a flight record from Belgium under the name Peter Ellison. My face. My photo. A signature I didn't recognize. And next to it, a redacted report titled, Behavioral Reassignment. Asset C12, Status, Terminated. I backed away from the screen. My hands were slick with sweat. I looked around the room again. Had this place been built for me? Or had I stumbled into someone else's shadow? Because if what I was seeing was real, then Eliza hadn't just betrayed me. She had been sent to manage me. I left Dock 9C without looking back. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My mind was racing through fragments I didn't know belonged to me. Eliza hadn't just taken my money or my trust. She'd stolen my history, twisted it, and turned my identity into a tool for something I never agreed to. I wasn't sure what behavioral reassignment meant, or why I had a flight record under a name I didn't remember. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just betrayal. It was engineering. And if Eliza thought I was too broken, too convenient, to push back, she was wrong. The flash drive from Dock 9C contained more than the one video. It had logs, audio files, contracts, enough to raise very real, very public questions about what she and her handlers had been doing and who they'd done it to before. I packaged it all, quietly, and sent it anonymously to 3 newsrooms. Not tabloids. Reputable investigative agencies with real reach. Then I emailed her lawyer and told him I would no longer be honoring the silence clause. If she wanted war, it would be public. But she didn't fight back. Instead, she disappeared again. No contact. No legal threats. Just vanished. Weeks passed. One morning, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It simply said, "You were never supposed to wake up." No signature. No threat. But I took it as a gift. A confirmation. Because I had woken up. And I wasn't afraid anymore. I moved out of the house, closed all the old accounts, and started fresh in a place where no one called me Peter or Curtis. Just me. I started teaching photography to kids. It was something I used to love, something I let go of while trying to please a woman who only saw me as a mission. Now, I get to be unknown again, but on my own terms. Thanks for listening. If you've ever discovered a hidden truth in your own past, or had someone rewrite your story without your consent, share it in the comments below. You're watching Reddit Confessions. Make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about the most shocking twist of history you've ever heard. We'll be reading every one.